What is going on, Facebook land and YouTube? So, it's been some time. Hello. It's been some time since I've actually posted, and so felt the need to get on here because I've had some conversations in the past couple month and a half recently about my health issue recently that sparked an interest to get back on here and talk to some people, talk to you fine folks. So, kind of a little quick broad story. Ended up having a blood clot, had to have surgery for a blood clot, had a pretty significant blood clot, 18 inches long in my right leg, my right femur. Started from below my knee up until past my hip, and then turns out when I went to the hospital to get admitted, they found that I had a pulmonary embolism also. So that was something that was obviously not expected, and spent a couple days in the hospital, got some on really good blood thinner medication, and got that taken care of. But I've obviously taken stock over the past 6 to 8 weeks as far as where my life is progressing, where it's been, and where I want it to go. And we tend to do these things. We tend to reevaluate our lives and the way that our path when we reach certain milestones. I'll be 52 in a few weeks, and obviously things have changed since I was in my 20s or I was in my 30s, even my 40s. So I had some good conversations with family and friends, and they thought that I should share a couple stories with this. First of all, full disclosure, I had gone in about 10 days prior to coming down this blood clot and had a full blood workup. Everything looked fantastic. Cholesterol's a little high, but we're managing that. But the issue with it was my hemoglobin, my hematocrit, all those were within completely normal profiles. So that was something that was really, I'm not going to say surprising, but I hadn't been traveling. Now granted, I had traveled the day that we left for Nashville is when I started feeling the symptoms in my calf. So it wasn't as a result of my travel to Nashville to visit family. It was just an issue of that kind of progressed things along, I think. But I hadn't had surgery in a couple years, and didn't have obviously not extensive travel, no air, nothing flying wise. Had I flown recently? No, I hadn't flown recently. So it was kind of a surprise. It was unexpected, and even the internal medicine doctors were surprised about that and wanted to kind of get into why that was happening. And so I've been referred to a hematologist, and they are trying to, we've done blood work. I see my cardiologist in about 2 weeks, actually about a week and a half. I see the hematologist a few days after that. So hopefully we'll have some news. But I am taking stock as far as what I need to be doing to make some changes automatically. So that being said, obviously people know that I love to cycle, and obviously weight loss is a part of this process that we have to really approach very methodically. Now, my weight will fluctuate throughout the year, generally because I do a lot of weight training, or I used to do a lot of weight training. I'm not so much anymore, but doing a lot of weight training and then doing a lot of cycling. So I'll typically get down to my lowest, somewhere in the 205, 210, 215 range by the time that the Hotter Than Hell race comes around. And I'm actually ahead of track on that because I'm actually down about another 10.5, 12 pounds from 2 weeks, or from about a month and a half ago when I got released from the doctor's office, which is good. We want to do that. But here's the reason for this video. I recently had a former client of mine message me and say, Steve, I'm paraphrasing this, I'm not going to obviously call this person out. Steve, I need some help because I know how you love to cycle, I know how you love to bike. You're always talking about how great it is and how good you feel. I've started it up, but I'm not losing any weight. What am I doing wrong? And, of course I had to kind of talk to talk to this person and really comfort them to say that no, it's not an issue to where you're not doing it. Let's kind of rephrase the parameters with it. Let's look at weight loss as one of the metrics, but the other metric is overall health. Cardiovascular activity is wonderful when it comes to health and longevity and really enhancing your life. It absolutely sucks when it comes to weight loss or to fat loss. And I'm going to go over essentially my top 4 reasons why cycling just blows for weight loss and for fat loss, which might surprise some people, considering that on Saturday I'm usually cycling out. I spend a couple days a week on the trainer, and I just enjoy it. It's kind of my thing. But I have to be be realistic with this, in the fact that cycling and most aerobic activity, whether it's jogging, things of that sort, if you are doing it for weight loss or for fat loss, it's really not the best thing to do. It's not the end all to be all. Yes, you will see some progress with it, but if you are solely doing that and nothing else, you're limiting yourself. So let's talk about why I feel like cycling sucks. Actually, let's kind of get a little bit more dramatic with it. Cycling does not suck. Cycling blows for weight loss, for fat loss, and it really does. And here are my top 4 reasons, in no particular order, of why I feel that's the case. Okay, so number 1, the number 1 reason why I feel that cycling absolutely just blows when it comes to weight loss or fat loss is very simply the time involved, the amount of time necessary to get on the bike and to do it. And let's be honest, most people do not have the amount of time that they need to really be effective with this. Now, let me kind of clarify a couple things. First and foremost, I feel that anybody that wants to get on a bike, go for it. Again, I cannot speak more about it. Same thing as if you love to run, if you love to swim, if you love to walk, if you love to garden, if you love to, whatever your gig is, just fucking do it. I don't care what it is, just do it. If you enjoy doing it, do it. I was recently listening to a podcast, and a colleague of mine, both he and his commentator, I'll basically call it Jordan Syed, they hate cycling. He hates cycling, which I thought was hilarious. But again, that's his beam. That's whatever he wants to do. If you don't like it, don't do it. I remember back in the 80s and 90s, running was all that was the thing. Dr. Kenneth Cooper, huge fan of Dr. Cooper, would talk all the time. Hey, if you have 20 minutes to do cardio, do this, run. I think he has books out on running. Obviously do it. I hate to run. I will not run. I don't run. Luckily, orthopedically, I can't run anymore. I've had surgeries upon surgeries, so it's not a good idea for me to run. But I can cycle, and that's where I really enjoy it. So do what you enjoy doing. But in order to do anything effectively and to see good progress, see good results with it, you have to do it consistently. You have to be consistent. In order for anybody to really see progress, you have to be consistent. You cannot expect to go into the weight training. You can't expect to go into the gym and work out 1 day a week, do 1 training session a week, and expect to see phenomenal progress. You cannot expect to go out and train and run half a mile once a week and expect to go run a marathon. You have to be able to put in the time, put in the miles, put in the effort to do that. So when coming with that, cycling, getting on a bike 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week is the way to go. You have to do that. But let me clarify something. If you can't get on the bike 5 days a week, but you can get on the bike 2 days a week, and then you do 2 days a week of walking, or 2 days a week of getting on the elliptical. Break it up. You can do that. That is absolutely fantastic, and that's a great goal to go with that. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have the time to do a 3-mile ride on Saturday and another hour and a half, 2-hour ride on Sunday, and then do a couple of hours, during the week, don't worry about it. Do what you can, and then substitute it with something else to where you enjoy doing that as well. So that is my number one issue with that, is obviously the time needed to utilize for cycling. And that goes across the board when it comes into any type of aerobic activity. The second reason is, quite frankly, the amount of intensity that most people use when they're going out for a bike ride. I see there's two different camps on this. You see people that are exercising way too high, their intensity is way too high, or their intensity is way too low. And that really comes into some play with this. So, when we are talking about a quote-unquote fat-burning zone, we're talking about long, slow-duration cardio. I like to compare it to walking. You can walk for hours upon hours upon hours at a time. You can run or jog for a small fraction of that same amount of time. Most people can't. I basically will do about maybe 1/10 of what most people can. But you want to be doing something as far as slow, long duration cardio. So that is what's called your quote-unquote fat-burning zone. You'll hear trainers, you'll hear coaches call it your zone 2 cardio. That really is where your heart rate gets at a certain level to where you're utilizing more fatty acids than glycogen or carbohydrates for your energy source. And it allows you to utilize a greater percentage of fat or fatty acids for energy. You're still going to be utilizing carbohydrates, so getting into these diets to where it's a no carb, zero carb, or I'm doing fasted cardio, it doesn't work that way. The studies and the data shows that it's not that effective. But when you are training in a slower duration, a slower intensity, you are able to manage that up very, very, very effectively. The downfall is that most people, when they first start out, they're not conditioned to train in that realm first, in that level first, and they'll go way above what they normally would. So, case in point, for me, my zone 2 cardio is roughly around anywhere between, for my age and my activity factor, is anywhere between 115, 117, up to about 130. That's on my heart rate. That's not the only thing I'm looking at, but that is one factor you can use as far as heart rate. For most people, when they start up cycling, they will be in the 130s, 140s, 150s. Now, let me clarify something. If you are still working or cycling at that intensity, or you're walking at that intensity, or you're jogging at that intensity, or you're on the elliptical, whatever the case may be, if you are still doing it, you're still making progress. You're just doing a greater percentage of carbohydrates for energy versus fat, which is still good. We want to still have that total energy expenditure. But again, if your goal is for fat loss or for weight loss, then you want to be spending more time in a zone 2 realm. Now, that being said, if you do decide to work as you start to progress and you start to really advance up, your body adapts. So now you are doing more activity with less effort. You're becoming more efficient with your activity, and you're actually burning less calories as you progress. Again, it's the law of adaptation. You are burning less calories by doing the same amount of activity. The way I like to explain this is for somebody that goes out and jogs a mile. They could be exhausted after doing the first, and it could take them 15, 20, 25 minutes to do that. But the more consistently that you do it, the more consistently that you actually exercise and train for that, you'll start to notice that A, your time is going to decrease, but B, it's also going to become easier. Again, you're adapting up to that activity. And it's going to allow you to burn less calories or use less energy to do the same amount of activity. So the way that you counteract that is either by going harder, a little bit more intense, or longer duration. And that's a whole nother discussion for another time. So again, why cardio or why cycling sucks for weight loss is that most people, particularly if you're going out on group rides with a cycling group, is they generally tend to push the envelope in the very beginning for people that may not be ready for that. Now, let me kind of clarify something also. If you do belong to a cycling group, they generally have stages to go through. You'll start out at a lower stage, and then when you start to really progress up, move up a step, move up a step, move up a step, move up a step. It can take a while to do that. So don't get frustrated, but take your time in doing that. All right, take your time and enjoy the process. The third reason, that's 1 and 2. So basically, first one is because of time. Second is because of energy involved, activity, intensity. Number 3 is really why generally most cycling blows when it comes into that, is because a lot of people, and I do this also, a lot of people will tend to use trackers in order to estimate how many calories they've actually burned. And those can be wildly inaccurate. I mean wildly inaccurate. You can see, I've actually done this twice. I've done a comparison once to where I had a tracker. I use a tracker and I use a Garmin. I use a Garmin both as a heart rate monitor as well as a cycling computer. And I'm able to get a good estimate as far as how many calories, quote unquote, that I burned during that activity. And there was one time I did an experiment because I used a couple different trackers and I wanted to try this out. But one of my trackers, it tracked me, for that hour at something like 435 calories. The other tracker that I used calculated up that I used something like 1,200. That is a massive difference. And of course, I'm going to put up here, somewhere in there. I'm going to put the figures in which I actually used for that. But it was wildly different. And when I saw that, I realized that if I'm looking at one, and I've used the Garmin for a long time, so I feel it's much more accurate. But if somebody is looking at a tracker and they're saying, oh, I burned X calories, but I only actually did, in reality, a third of that, or a quarter of that, or half of that, or 2/3 of that. But now I can eat more because I burned all these extra calories in. You could actually be putting yourself back into a caloric surplus versus a caloric deficit, which is the whole goal that we want to use. So that's why trackers are not necessarily the most effective mode to track if you're looking strictly for weight loss. I feel that trackers are phenomenal for tracking steps. I feel trackers are phenomenal for really tracking your sleep, your mood, how those will make you feel. I mean, I can tell you that based off my sleep patterns, when I put in a certain level of sleep or a certain many hours, I really do find myself tracking a little bit more dynamically. As well as when I track my food, I'm able to see how well I feel and how well I recover. So tracking is a very effective tool, but again, you have to look at it use it as a grain of salt. Don't necessarily focus on just the number by itself. You want to look and see how you did. So that's the third reason why cycling just really kind of sucks on that. And that goes for trackers on ellipticals, on cardio equipment, they all just suck. They just all suck ass because they're wildly ineffective. They're wildly inaccurate, and you don't want to use those kind of those factors. Same thing, and I'm gonna go on a little bitch here also. The heart rate monitors. I use a chest strap heart rate monitor. Do not always strictly rely on heart rate as a measure of how hard you're actually working, because I've done this. I will go out and I will track my heart rate based on different times of the day, how I slept, basically how hot it is outside, how cold it is outside, what the humidity is. Heart rate is very simply a measure of stress that your body's going through. If you were able to focus on a completely sanitary environment to where it was absolutely the same thing day in, day out, you could track that. I think that would be much more reliable. But when it's 107 degrees outside with a humidity of over 85%, your heart rate is going to be higher than it is if you're in Southern California and it's 72 degrees at 13% humidity. I don't know what it is in California. I'm using that as an example. You will see a dramatic difference overall as far as how much stress your body is undergoing, and that's all heart rate is a measure of stress. So that's the third issue when it comes into those to those factors. So again, number one, what was number one? Number one was the amount of obviously intent, or the amount of time intensity time that you need to commit to it. Number two was the intensity factor. Number three was the heart rate, the calorie trackers. And number four is, and this really could be the number one reason, is the cost. So a cost for a good entry-level road bike, and I'm not talking about one that you get at Walmart or Target, I'm talking about one that you get at a bike shop, is not what most people think. A good entry-level bike will cost you anywhere between $350 to $700. And that's for not a race bike, not a something that you're going to go, that's a good entry-level bike. It could be a mountain bike, it could be a road bike, it could be a flat bar, it could be, basically curved bars. There's a lot of variety when it comes into what you're looking at. But that can be a very limiting factor for most people. Because let's compare it. For going out for a walk, you literally just put on a pair of shoes, a pair of shorts, comfortable shirt, hat, sunscreen, and you're good to go. A bike, you need the bike. You need a good, it is required. You need a good pair of bike shorts, and do not skimp on this. You need a good pair of bike shorts that you need to wear. And you need a helmet. Safety factor, right there. You need a helmet. I've had a few crashes over the course of the last decade and a half, and there's actually been one time, or actually twice, where my helmet is cracked. You need a helmet. There's no getting around that. But again, bike shorts, helmet, bike. And then you're going to need, water bottles. You'll need the cages. You'll need the little stuff. And then if you decide to go down the slippery slope of the bike world, then you're looking at clipless pedals. You're looking at the shoes. A lot of those are an investment because you will use those for years and you will not need to upgrade. I've had the same set of shoes now for, 9 years, and I just upgraded to new shoes. I mean, these things are built to last. But, you don't always need to get the latest, greatest bike. You don't need to get a bike that is $15,000, and trust me, they are out there. But a good bike, and then you really do want to get a good bike fit. You want to make sure that that is something to where that's a good investment, that's a valuable tool to have somebody actually come over and actually look at it, make sure that's the right the right fit for you. Is the seat the right size for you? Check your sit bones, all those factors. So that is really, honestly, the cost factor is and I hate to say it, is the most limiting factor for most people, especially starting out. But you don't have to let it be. You can go to a Target, you can go to a Walmart and get a, very bare bones entry level bike, see if it's something you want to continue on with, and do that. Because the great thing about it is cycling is such a great activity and is such a great tool for a variety of reasons that, I really can't speak too much. I can't talk too. There's really no negatives that I can really come with that. I'm willing to do those things. So now I know I've given a lot of flack as far as why cycling is just absolutely sucks for weight loss. But let's talk about the benefits of it. Let's talk about why it's so effective. And I give you the 4 reasons why I don't like cycling. But let's talk about 4 reasons why I do like cycling. The number one reason why I love cycling, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic activity, is because of the community. There is just a really strong community when it comes into cycling. You can go to any city and find a cycling club. I don't care where you go, you're going to find a cycling club. And I think part of it has to do with the fact of it really brings back to being kids again. When we were kids, that was our mode of transportation. You wanted to go to your friend's house, you wanted to go to the store, you want to go to the roller rink, you want to go somewhere, you bike there. There was none of this, mom will take us. There was none of this, hey, can I get a ride? It was, you biked everywhere. And when I say you biked everywhere, that's where basically our parents could generally find where we were, because we would be at our friend's house and there'd be a pile of bikes outside. So you were able to track down where you were actually at. So again, the community factor, I love going to these cycling, to these, races, to these rides, and there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people there doing the exact same thing and having a great time and just smiling and just enjoying the process. The community factor, and again, it doesn't matter if you want to run, if you want to swim, if you want to golf, whatever you want to do. You find people, you find people that are doing the same thing, and it just makes it that much more enjoyable. So that's the number one reason why cycling is so effective. Number 2, the health issues. I really don't feel like I need to talk about this or discuss this, but the health issues, the health improvements with your life are just numerous. Let's kind of start from the beginning, or start at the top. Blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, helps to lower LDL cholesterol, helps to raise HDL cholesterol, particularly if you are utilizing resistance training or weight training in conjunction with that as well. Endorphin release. My gosh, we've all heard about the runner's high, but there's also the cycling high. When you go out and you actually do a cycling trip or a cycling ride with friends, and you come back and you just feel like you're on top of the world. For me, now that I've gotten into indoor cycling on the Zwift, I'll go in, I'll do a 20-30 minute session, and I feel fantastic. I don't want to do it all the time when I start, but it really does change my mood. And if I don't cycle, if I don't get out on the bike, if I don't get out on the road, I'm not a great person to be around. Because again, and one of the other factors with it is you're outdoors. You're not in front of the TV or in front of the computer. One of the most enjoyable things for me, in particular, when I'm out on a road session, is all I have to worry about is the road right in front of me. I'm not worried about emails. I'm not worried about phone calls. I'm not worried about, what's coming up next week. I am simply in the moment. I am in the zone. I'm at that moment where I am focused on directly what's in front of me, and that's all I have to worry about. That to me is incredibly cathartic. It allows me to just recenter myself, and it's that time that I get to spend to where I can just really focus on me. So, again, the health benefits with it are just astronomical. And to coincide with that, number 3, kind of going along with the health benefits, is cycling is non-impact. So if you have a knee issue, if you have a low back, hip issue, I qualify for all three of those things. You cannot, it's not something that you can't do, but it's much more difficult to go out for a jog because of those orthopedic or those physical capabilities. You can still actually have some discomfort on a bike, don't get me wrong. And that's why I mentioned getting a bike fit is so imperative, or can be so beneficial, because you can adjust the bike up to your riding style is very effective. And so that is another reason why doing that, again, it's a non-impact activity, but you can strengthen up those different tissues when you are doing when you're actually doing that activity. The number 4 reason is, it's good for the environment. Let's call it, get a little hokey with this, but it is good for the environment. You can actually, the more, again, I'm just going to kind of get on a little soapbox here. We don't see kids riding bikes anymore. We don't see kids riding their bikes to school. Or if we do see them riding their bikes to school, they're those e-bikes, so they got those motorized scooters, bullshit things. Get on a bike and do some activity. Get out and do something. Again, like I said, when we were kids, that's how we got around, was on a bike. So, it's great for the environment. And then the last thing, and this is kind of bonus number 5, and this just kind of popped in my head, is it's a great memory building tool. One of the most cherished memories, really it is. It's one of the best memories I have growing up. And I was probably maybe 7, 8, 9, was us as a family. And I'm talking about, my dad, Donna, Kyle, Carrie, Kelly, Sean, Brad. After my dad would get home from work, is we'd all get on the bike and we go ride the bike trail. Same ones I'm riding today, these days. Go all the way down and then come all the way back. Those memories you cannot replace. Those are just, it's something to where you hold on to those. And, having that time of spending time with my wife now, of doing that, taking Caitlin down to White Rock Lake, and actually us going around the White Rock Lake. Those are memories that I will cherish, for the rest of my life. And it really does get you into that factor of really, again, reflecting of what life is all about and what we want to make out of it. It's not the years that I have left. It's the quality of years that I have left. Because, again, as I said, I'll be 52. We're starting to kind of realize things. And, unfortunately, I have lost friends and family that are gone way too soon. Classmates of mine that are gone way too soon. And so, putting that back into perspective. So, anyways, that is something that I wanted to just hop on here. As I mentioned, I had some friends. I've had a couple conversations lately with some people that, it turns out that they did have blood clot, and thankfully they're getting treatment for it. But, I plan on getting back on here a little bit more often, and I plan on doing some education, and I plan on getting back into some different components with this, and I'm excited to be back. It's taking me some time. I need to take a wait. But anyway, guys, hope you have a fantastic weekend. We have 4th of July coming up. Definitely spend time with your family. That's a big part for me. Spend time with friends, family, and have a great time. But other than that, guys, be careful out there. If you do get out on the bike, look me up. If you want to come out for a Saturday ride, let me know. We can definitely get it going. And hope see you guys on the trails. Anyway, guys, have a great afternoon, have a great evening, have a great morning whenever you're seeing this, and love you guys. Take care.